Shalom, all praises to Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, uh, double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, Bashem Chakodash, my name is Jacob from Plaintables Camp, and the scripture says, with that Revelation 17, I believe, thee shall hate the whore, all right, meaning the seven heads and 10 horns, they got together and they received power for a certain amount of time. The scripture say 1 hour with the beast. Or as the beast. All right, so they came together and they formed this beast. All right, and they ruled over the earth. All right, now they said these shall hate the whore. We'll get the scripture, but the Israelis, these so-called Jays. All right, Israel's next target revealed. I believe this clip is probably from a couple of months ago, and that the TYT is using.
New Turkish threat is emerging. I want to be very clear. Turkey and Qatar, a new Turkish threat is emerging. I want to be very clear. Turkey and Qatar have gained influence in...
See, basically, those Arab countries, the Gulf states, they call them, are basically slaves. Turkey and Qatar, they're getting, Turkey anyway, Qatar anyway, they're under attack from Iran because of their relationship with oil and United States. So they're really a threat. They really, the so-called Jays really want to rule the whole world. All right, and this is evidence. This is an Israeli politician, I believe.
Syria, a new Turkish threat.
So Turkey is a part of NATO. It says, these shall hate the whore. So when you look up the beast, it's referring to a conglomerate of nations, EU, NATO nations that make up the beast. Turkey is one of them.
Is emerging. I want to be very clear. Turkey and Qatar have gained influence in Syria, are seeking influence elsewhere and everywhere throughout the region. And from here, I warn, Turkey is the new Iran.
Israeli politician Naphtali Bennett, the guy who's supposed to be the opposition to Netanyahu, he was kind enough to let his pay pigs here in the United States know which...
Well, again, they're all working together, okay? There's two different power structures, or really the same power structure, and they're carrying out the will of the elite that's behind them. So that statement was the will of the elite. All right? No. These shall hate the whore. Turkey is a part of the beast. And eventually, those beast nations are going to shoot their nuclear fire. They're going to shoot their firepower on Babylon America at the end. That's at the very end. All right? But in the meantime, they're all going to agree on that implantable microchip. They're all going to agree, and it's going to be fragmented. There's going to be more fragments.
War Israel's going to drag us into next, because the propaganda against Turkey has begun. So pretty soon, I'm sure we're going to be hearing about how Turkey is, building dangerous weapons of mass destruction, and we must go in and attack them immediately. This is a disaster, but it didn't just stop with Naphtali Bennett. I'm going to get into all the various claims that are being made by various Israeli individuals, including some who work as operatives here in the United States, meant to kick Turkey out of NATO, which would then justify the U.S. attacking them because they're no longer a NATO ally.
Well, I mean, that's going to push Turkey closer to Russia, and you're going to have the Eastern-Western fight. All right. So let's see how the Third World War take place, what the fragments are going to be. But we know eventually the nuclear powers, whether they're part of the beast or not, they're going to shoot their nuclear arsenal on Babylon America. All right, but let's see how this turns out.
That's the whole point here.
Now, I believe Gomer is referring to Turkey in Ezekiel the 30th chapter. All right, you can fact check that. Gomer or Torgama, one or both. So it makes sense that Turkey will be fracturing from the beast. It says, these shall hate the whore. Let me get it. I have it up. Blue letter. let's see, hate, or I believe it's Revelation 17. Yep, 17 and 16. Revelation. And the 10 horns, which Turkey is a part of it, and the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and eat her flesh, and burn her with fire. All right. Now, whatever nations actually have the capability to burn with fire, it's going to be burnt with fire. They're going to use their fire to burn Babylon, America. All right. And most of the nations are the so-called European nations. All right.
So things have definitely escalated. Turkish President Erdogan called out Israel's desperate attempts to torpedo the very fragile ceasefire between Iran and the United States. It's supposed to last until the 22nd, April 22nd. And while Trump's administration says that they're not seeking an extension of this 2-week ceasefire, Erdogan says that Turkey will be pushing for the truce to last longer to ensure that peace negotiations can continue. So that, look, I am not a fan of the Turkish government, but you're telling me that the guy who wants the ceasefire to last longer so peace negotiations can continue is the real threat? Okay. So
like there's a plan to bring in a new system, all right? A new system, and there has to be fragments. There has to be a reorganization of power and wealth for that to take place. All right, and we're us, as Hebrew Israelites, we are on the chopping block. We are on the chopping block for arrests, assassinations, prison. All right, only thing we got is Yahushai. We have nothing else but the power of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, the Father, Yahweh, the Son, Yahushai, and our angels, the guardian angels. The angels are going to protect us. And whoever slated for whatever fate is going to meet that fate. So at any time, Esau could push forth his agenda. All right, because one thing that's not going to happen, you're going to have Hebrew Israelites, while they establishing this new system, on the street corners, telling them that he's going to get burnt with fire. That's not going to happen for too much longer. We may have a couple of months, a couple more years, but eventually they're going to stop the word on the street. All right, and we're going to move into the next phase. All right, the next phase is good. That's a good thing. We ain't supposed to be out there on the streets, preaching the gospel every single week forever. All right, it's for a limited time. We're pilgrims. We're going to go home eventually, but we got to that chip got to come in. Persecutions, famines, partitions of cities, fear, and salvation, secure. All right. Abundance of resources that the Yahushai is going to provide his elect that are slated to be delivered in the chariots out of Babylon.
Erdogan says the following, and he hasn't been holding back lately. The real question is he just paying lip service to the people of Turkey who are furious over Israel's shenanigans lately, or does he actually mean it? Because here's what he says. If there is to be peace in our region, it will be despite the Zionist regime. If stability is achieved, it will again be despite the Israeli government. And I actually agree with him on that. But let's actually back up a little bit to understand how Israel began to sour on Turkey in the first place. So after the October 2023 attacks on Israel and how they responded to those attacks, basically Turkey suspended all trade with Israel, and they even closed their airspace to Israel. So already,
I didn't know that, or maybe I reported and forgot, but I did not know that. Because they're Muslims, they're mixed people, Edomites, Arabs, and Elam. They're not a pure. I believe she's Turkish, or I know Cenk, he's Turkish. So I think the main people that run the Young Turks, they are Turks, but the government of it's an Islamic Well, I don't know exactly how Turkey is classified, but I know they do have the crescent moon on their flag, and they're Muslims. So, but I know the history goes back to the steppes and I believe the Caucasus around that area, if I'm not mistaken. You can correct me on that. But yeah, I believe they're mixed people. When you look at them, you'll see some of them look like Edomites, some of them look Arab, Elam, Esau, Arab, or Ishmael, Elam. So there's a mixture going on there. Now, when you see that region in Asia, that area of Asia, there's like a lot of mixture because of the Roman Alexander, the so-called Great, and the Roman Empire. Well, really Alexander. So and slavery and deportations, stuff they hide in history.
Already, we see a relationship that's kind of falling apart, if there was even much of a relationship to begin with. Now, they were peaceful with one another, but Turkey sees what's going on and they decide, no, we don't agree with this. We're going to close our airspace and we're going to ban trade with Israel. And as one can imagine, Netanyahu wasn't so happy about it. Okay, so here's a post from Netanyahu just a few days ago, April 11th, 2026. Israel under my leadership will continue to fight Iran's terror regime and its proxies, unlike Erdogan, who accommodates them and massacred his own Kurdish citizens. And that's when things got even spicier, okay? So Turkey's foreign ministry described Benjamin Netanyahu as the Hitler of our time. True, true. Responding to a post on X by Israel's prime minister accusing Erdogan of...
Okay, so Turkey's foreign minister describes Benjamin or Bibi as the Hitler of our time, responding to the post on X by Israel's prime minister, accusing President Erdogan of cooperating with Iran and massacring the Kurdish people. They don't give a fuck about the Kurdish people. Israeli, the so-called Jews, so-called Jays do not give a damn about the Kurdish people. Unless they're going to use the Kurds to fight the Israelis' enemies. Yeah, so they care about them. They were talking about the Kurds going into Iran also, but one of the leaders popped up and said, "Nah, we're ready, but maybe we still got more talking to do." Something along those lines. You can fact check that. With Iran massacring the Kurdish people, when you massacred, man, these groups of Edomites separated themselves from each other. It's just okay, I guess, but they're going to be exposed to be. They're going into the same pit. If Erdogan is a Edomite, he's going to the same pit as the so-called Jays. All right. If he's I say Edomite. If he's an Elamite, he's going to a different pit. Slavery, They're all going to be subject to us based upon, their sins against the children of Israel. And there's going to be a hierarchy amongst the slaves.
Of cooperating with Iran and massacring the Kurdish people. Now, from my understanding, the Turkish government has not been particularly kind to the Kurds. I'll give you a specific example.
Okay, we don't need to. Y'all can do your own research on that. But where were we at? We were at Revelation 17:16. All right. Victory for the Lamb. That's us. We're the Israelites. That's Yahweh Shai is the head. All right. We are sheep. He's the head lamb. So it's Yahweh Shai is the head lamb. All right. This is a figure for Yahweh Shai. These shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them, for he is the Lord of Lords and King of Kings, and because all power is committed unto Yahweh Shai, the Son, and the King of Kings, and they that are with him are called, chosen, and faithful. All right. So that was John reciting what he saw. Okay. So eventually they're going to partition themselves from among the beasts. It says the 10 horns. It says, now let's read carefully. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore. So it didn't say 2 or 5. It said it's John is calling all of them. John saw all of them hating the whore. So something's major, like the apostle's been saying, like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, that something's major going to happen. And you already see the fragments. All right, you see the fragments. All right, Britain, France, Germany, Turkey. Yeah, it's hard to believe about Britain because Britain is, where Babylon America was birthed, and it's Illuminati Central over there. But you're gonna have it's gonna rift somehow, some way. So that nuclear arsenal that Britain has is gonna burn. It's gonna be part of the bombardment. The hellfire is gonna come on Babylon America. So you got different powers working in these countries. It's gonna happen, whether willingly or unwillingly. They're gonna use their nuclear arsenal to burn Babylon America.